Hey everyone, thank you for joining Soulfish. I'm really glad you're here. If you're new to the channel and what you hear resonates for you, please subscribe, leave a comment. We love it when you join our community. We're growing every day thanks to you, to everyone that's been subscribing and leaving positive feedback. It means a lot to us, and I want you to know that we recognize it and appreciate it, and that's why we're here, is to help each other, as we learn to share. It's not about trying to be somebody's guru, because I'm not. It's about sharing with you what I'm told, sharing with you what I'm shown, sharing with you some of the experience, right? So from that perspective, here we are together. And guess what? It's August energy reading time. It's August 5th. Of the year 2019. And this is some really, really important stuff. I hope that you stay tuned through the whole whammy. It's really a complete picture. It's really quite interesting when you look back really over the last 12 months, right? And you think about the history of you over the last 12 months and how many changes have occurred in you, how many mini deaths have occurred in you where this thing ended, and it ended for good, and you really feel like it has, right? And you're moving on to newer, better things. Quite interesting time. And so here we are in August, and this is a wrap up. This is the end of a cycle. So we're completing a cycle, and cycles are energy waves. Cycles are like energy waves. They start out, right, and you may get the fatter end of the wave, right, and then with time it starts to shrink down into that valley, into that long line, right? And that's a wave. And a cycle works very much like that, like a spiral. And a lot of times it works in the opposite of the wave. In other words, where the wave has a buildup at the beginning, and then it has kind of that détriment, and it kind of goes down to that line, right? A spiral kind of starts small and works its way bigger. So in some ways, kind of the yin to the yang, right? I don't know where I'm going off. That's a bit of a rabbit trail, but you catch my vibe. You catch where I'm trying to go with this, right? So we're completing this cycle. You'll find that it's been a lot of things from the past, right? You've been experiencing that, particularly stuff you thought you'd handled, and all of a sudden here it is coming up again, coming up and out. And it's been pretty impactful, pretty aggressive, pretty strong emotions, right? Strong emotions. That's okay. You're not alone. That's what this process is really about. We're ending this cycle at the end of this month, which means your new adventure is really beginning. It's really beginning now. It's kind of like, if you can envision history a little bit, and when they were signing up people to get on the ships, and they were going ahead and signing up people, signing up all the goods and everything, but it was a couple of weeks out. It's that kind of a thing right now. It's this prep time. It's preparing for this next block of energy. This next block of time, which is this adventure. So right now, a lot of people are having a hard time committing. You have to choose a direction. That's part of your co-creation. And for a lot of people, there's been a lot of fear around that, because they feel like, and rightly so, you've come to a point where you have to make a choice. You have to choose a direction. You're at the right or left. You turn left or you turn right. You're at the T. There's no option for you anymore. And you're concerned that you're at this juncture, right? And you're concerned about repeating the past, repeating how that made you feel. Like, because now this is on you. You're turning left or you're turning right. It's on you. And you're like, I really don't want this book to be like that last book. And so there's a lot of fear surrounding that, about not repeating the past, not repeating that pain, the things that cause that pain. So people are experiencing that. Let's talk a little bit about physicality stuff in terms of what we're dealing with right now. And I'll wrap this up for you guys and tidy it up. But let's talk about some physical stuff. A lot of folks right now, body pains, aches, random places, knees, hips, joints. It's really joint pain, I guess is really a better way to say it, joint pain. The all popular gas. A lot of people have gas issues and headaches. I like that. But that's what's occurring. So look, if you've got some of these physical ailments, you need to service that. These are other things that have manifested into a physicality for you, so that it brings notice to you. And a lot of people get caught up in the symptom. I have a headache. I'm going to take some ibuprofen. It goes away. Everything is kosher. But the reality is you might want to ask yourself, well, why did I get the headache to begin with? And that's not something we're really taught to do. But that is something that I think we should do a lot more of. So let's talk about Your Body Speaks Your Mind. This is a great book. I do digital books. I do physical books. I'm the guy who handwrites into books and highlights and writes, underline stuff. And so all my books have notes in them. But this is definitely a book you want to consider getting in a physical format, because you'll find that you'll come back to certain things as it relates to you and the baggage that you carry. You'll come back to certain things, ailments, whatever, over and over again. And I think this gives a really good perspective and sometimes questions to ask of yourself. So let's talk about some of the things that have been going on for folks in this time period right now, what you're experiencing, because I'm talking about the now, not what you're going to experience. I'm talking about what you have been experiencing, will experience for the next little bit through this process. So let's talk about joint pain, right? So in Your Body Speaks Your Mind, which is by Deb Shapiro, I'm going to go to a particular page. Joint issues are, she says, joint issues are therefore connected to the expression of your feelings through your movements, and any conflict you may be experiencing with those feelings will be apparent. Let's look at some of the questions. Do you think your feelings are inappropriate to share? So for pain or stiffness in the joints, ask yourself these questions. Do you think your feelings are inappropriate to share? Do you feel misunderstood? What has become stiff and inflexible within you? Where have you lost your purpose, your direction, or your ability to move with flow? Who or what is making you so angry, irritated, or critical? So the most common difficulty with joints is inflammation, indicating hot and angry feelings trying to find expression. That's pretty neat stuff. I think you ought to consider that. I think you definitely ought to consider that if that's some of the issues that you've been facing. Again, this is in this book. I'm going to put the link in the description box below. But really good stuff. Let's talk about gas. Everyone loves gas. Irritable bowel syndrome. So we're talking about abdominal pain, gas, constipation, and other stuff associated, right? So think about this. This particular, when you think about what you're feeling down there, okay, is connected with maintaining power and boundaries, or with letting go and releasing control. So what part of you is getting so twisted, perhaps with fear or anxiety? What do you need to do to straighten this part, to unravel the twists or release this tension? What stress needs to be released? So these are some interesting questions. And of course, we could go on with headaches as well. Let's do that. Let's just do that briefly. Headaches. Now, I'm not, of course, I'm not your doctor, CPA, etc., right? So if you have physical issues, then I'm not suggesting that you blow off a doctor and you're going to, go grab a book and self-diagnose yourself and call it something that it may not be. Not where I'm coming from. So let's so I just didn't want any silliness back, but I did want to say, hey, of course, if you've got a real medical issue, take care of your medical issue. But understand that if these are recurring things in you that are not explainable, non-medical issues, but of course you're seeing the physical symptoms of, you're living those physical symptoms. And that's a lot of folks I work with. So you don't really think about how, spirit, mind, body approach. So you don't realize that some things that are really disturbing your soul, some things that are disturbing, then become a mind issue. You build a story, and then it manifests into a physical thing because you didn't see the story for what it was, and so it took something physical in you to maybe make you recognize it for really what it was. And that's the purpose of what we're discussing now. So, here's a great question to ask if you're one of those guys who've been getting headaches. Are you resisting someone or something? Are you putting too much energy into your head while forgetting your heart? That's been a lot of people's issues that I've been discussing with. Too much head, not enough feeling. So something great. I'm gonna put the description. Put the book in the description box below. That's Your Body Speaks Your Mind. But that's some good stuff. So let's talk about, how do we use all this information? If we know that we're coming to the end of a cycle and that cycle begins at the beginning of September, and that this is really about what are you taking with you forward, and also what are you leaving behind, which is why all of this kind of poison, all of this kind of bad feelings have been coming up in you. So the key parts, the takeaway is, you need to recognize what you're being shown. And if you're not sure, ask others. Read some stuff, but delve a little bit and see if it resonates in you. You don't have to be the expert. Nobody's, it's not funny to question. It doesn't make you weird to say, is that, if I really saw a fox and I've never seen a fox before, is it really weird to question that? Maybe that's something special, a sign that is something going on with you right now that you ought to consider. I think that's something rational. Now here's the hard part. You have to face whatever is causing that pain, that ache, that dis-ease in you. That's this poisonous thing that you thought you had resolved and it keeps coming up, right? You're going to have to commit. This is that left or right turn. That's relationships, job. That's all your big things, all your big questions, the big boxes that you're checking off, right? That's really what you're doing right now. And so the fear has been about committing. The fear has been about, man, I really haven't enjoyed it to this point for these reasons. I sure don't want to repeat that by doing something over here. But guess what? You're going to have to face whatever the root cause, not the symptoms, the root cause. And then you're going to have to commit. And you're going to have to choose a direction and know that it's going to be so much better than where you were at. So much better. You've done the work. You're not the same person. You're not viewing things in the same manner. You're not vibing in the same way. Therefore, your experience cannot be a duplicate. Now, it doesn't mean that it's all going to be positive. Of course you're going to face challenges and obstacles. That is what it is being here, right? But it's how you respond to those things and what you're really working on, and the purpose of practical spirituality, the purpose of what we're discussing right now, and why is August, energy reading so important, is because it's a sign, it's a precursor, it's a foretelling, it's sharing with you. You're already sensing it, you're already feeling it. It gives you reason to understand why you're feeling what you're feeling. That's the purpose. And it's not to say, oh, well, let's all hold hands and commiserate in our uncomfortableness as Mercury's in retrograde, right? That's not the purpose. The purpose is to understand that Mercury is in retrograde, and if you haven't worked on these issues, that these could affect you in a way that are not favorable to you. But it's not meant to hold you or oppress you. It's meant to wake you up. It's meant to say, hey, if these are not favorable to me, what can I do to change that? Because it is on you. In other words, your response. Now, there's a point of awareness and consciousness. So I'm talking about those that are working towards that goal, right? So something to think about, right? So we've talked about, where do you take this information? You use it to say, hey, I may be challenged in these ways. Or let's just say you're triggered by certain things, seen or unseen. And this gives you some heads up. This says, hey, maybe with some of this awareness, you're saying, oh, wow, maybe the reason I'm being triggered is this is exacerbating things, right? And that helps. So a little bit of knowledge helps, as long as you don't let the knowledge imprison you, as long as that knowledge doesn't close your mind, but it continues to open doors. So the next cycle is like a 2-year cycle. And so what that means for you is that this ending time is really about what are you taking forward into this next cycle? And that means, how are you gearing up? How are you prepping up? What are you doing to make this a better ride for yourself, an easier ride? Less lifting on stupid stuff and more lifting on things that matter. Your time is more meaningful. How are you shifting? That's what this time is right now. What are you dropping? Those things that have been coming up in you that you thought had been resolved aren't. Face them. Get them gone. You don't need to carry those rocks in your pocket for this next one. So this is all this time for you to be able to do this right now. And so we talk about, universe working with you and for you and sometimes doing it to you, right? In this case, right now, it's all of the above. Check mark all of them. And so for the next, for the remaining part of this month, for the whole part of August, as you head towards the beginning of September, it's really about finishing prepping, finishing about gearing up for the next 2 years. And just making that investment in you. If you had, bad example, but bear with me. If you had $1,000 sitting in the bank and that $1,000 has been sitting in the bank for the last 5 years, just sitting there, I would much rather you, or have you considered, investing that in yourself in whatever way that would allow these next 2 years to be meaningful. So really, let me give you a really bad example, but one to consider. So I learned a long time ago, Nance and I have been together quite a while. We learned a long time ago, invest in a shower head. When we first got together, it was these rentals. We didn't have any money, etc., right? And the one thing we learned was always invest in a shower head because you use that every day or most days, right? And that's worth it. So which was a lot of money to us at the time, but that was worth it because it was like pleasure. Invest in a mattress because you sleep on that. So like put your money in those things where you're really putting your time in, and try not to use the other, try to not put your money in the other things that aren't necessary for you to make these next 2 years as good for you as possible. What you're trying to do is put some air beneath your wings. What you're trying to do is use this time to better yourself, to drop all the BS you don't need, right? And to position yourself to be open, to dump out your cup, to unfill your cup so that it's ready to be filled by the next experience, by this whole next adventure. That's what this is about. So use this time wisely. Be with yourself. It's not about forgiving from an outside standpoint, but it is about like forgiving, forgetting, like realizing that you'll always have that information, but that it's not necessary for you to carry the pain with it because you've already gotten everything you can from it. This is a great time for you to finish what you've started. You've done the work, and now it's about applying yourself. You won't have to spend so much time in your head in this next cycle because you're doing this work now. And what that means is it's like you've set the foundation, the house, the bottom of the house is built, which dictates how many rooms and everything else that you're going to have, right? And so now you're just going to build it. You've already decided everything. Like now it's about the doing. Now it's about being successful at the doing of whatever it is, all those enterprises that you have going on with you, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, personal stuff, right? All these little buckets, career, all these things, right? That represents this third dimensional package of you, which are all geared at, in some ways, misdirecting you, right? Taking you away from what you really want to be doing, from who you really want to be being, right? And so what I'm asking you to consider, what I'm telling you, what the universe is working with you on is to say, hey, it doesn't have to be as hard in this next cycle if you're willing to let go of this stuff now. If you're willing to think about what would make these next 2 years great for you, and then gear up for that. You know, if I was telling you, hey, let's go on this hiking place, and where we're going is going to be high up and it's going to be cold, you know, I think you would want to take a little bit of oxygen and, you know, a warm jacket, right? So I'm saying to you is think of it like that. You know, you're going to go on this next adventure. You already know the general direction you're going in. You know, if it's going to be super sunny, bring a hat. That's all I'm saying. Do it now. You know that. Don't wait and say, oh, well, the hat's not important. I'll deal with that later. I'm saying to you is if you know you need a hat, go ahead and get the hat. Big or small issue, solve it. Do it. Add it to your thing now, because this is how you're going into the next book with. This is your next storyline. It's all your gear, man. Take it with you. Be ready. Emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. In the third dimensional you. Be smart about your planning. All of it. It's all there for you. This is a great, great time. And I know that this is just going to help you round everything out. Much love.